Jambo. Okay, so I served Peace Corps Kenya as a public health volunteer 2005, 2007. And I should say, before I left for Peace Corps Kenya, me and my mother, we had very long talks about how I would return back from Africa. Because like a lot of people, she had a very negative view of Africa. She thought only bad things happened in Africa. And I mean the whole continent. She never said Kenya. She only used Africa. The whole continent was bad. Good people went to Africa and bad things happened to those good people. So I assured her that, you know, they give you really good training and I would use common sense and I wouldn't do anything foolish or risky, right? And I would return to her the daughter that she knew, no problem. So I should say during our in-service training, and that's when you stay with your whole family and you learn the language and you learn the culture and what to do and what not to do, I felt like they were really stressing that we should assimilate, you know, in our villages so we could help the community. And I was uncomfortable with that because I kind of felt like they were asking me to sacrifice my identity to do what I wanted to do. I was scared, like no shit. I was like, I'm not willing to do that. So I thought maybe I could mimic assimilation, you know, like maybe I could just like pretend and it wouldn't be sincere and I could have all of these great adventures and I could learn all of these things and learn all this wisdom and this knowledge and I wouldn't have to sacrifice anything about myself. I'm not proud of that thought process. That was in the beginning. I'm not happy about that. But at the time, I didn't realize that the changes in me would be, some would be gradual, some would be instant, some would be subtle, some would be so profound, I wouldn't know I had changed until years after my service when I returned home. So that was my thought process at the time. So I didn't know what I didn't know. So fast forward 2 years, I made it. A lot of people thought I wouldn't. I don't blame them because I was the one who took a pair of pink Uggs and a velour jumpsuit with me to Kenya. So they did it. They had the reason to doubt, so I'm not hating, you know? They had the reasons. And so I'm home and I think I'm doing really good with my adjustment. You know, I'm flushing the toilet again. You know, I'm not standing in front of AC Transit buses doing like this, you know, asking for it to stop, because in Kenya you do that for taxis and matatus. You do like this or you run after it. So yeah, my expectations of how much I would shower, I have exceeded that, you know. I no longer have the desire to go outside and brush my teeth. You know, there's a sink and I'm using it. People who complain about drinking tap water, I no longer want to punch them in the face. You know, if they like their bottled water, that's fine. So I'm doing really, really good, and I'm getting caught up on all my pop cultural references. When people say things to me like "hell to the nah," I'm like, "Oh, that's Bobby Brown, Whitney Houston reality show." Yeah, I'm doing good. So my mom comes up to me and she goes, "You know, Shinita, you've got like a lot of mail in the garage. You have like 3 large garbage bags full. You need to go back there and look through it." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I go into the garage and, like she said, there's these 3 large stuffed garbage bags filled with mail. So I look in the first one. It's like 2 years worth of Us Weekly magazines. Okay, I don't need that. I'm good. I open up the second one. It's letters about my student loan. I'm not reading that shit. So I go to the other one, and I'm like, okay, this is all useless mail. So I did what any reasonable person would do. Okay, I dug a ditch in our backyard, dumped all of the garbage in it, took some lighter fluid, doused it, lit a match, and walked away. So I go into the house because Judge Joe Brown is on and I gotta keep this pop culture education going. So I sit on the couch and I hear this wailing in the back. And as it gets closer, I'm like, oh, that's a fire truck. You know, I had been gone 2 years. I hadn't seen a fire truck in a long time, so my heart's beating because I'm excited. And I'm like, Mom, there's a fire truck coming up the street. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And so I'm looking out the window because we have a picturesque window, and I'm like, oh, it's coming up our street. I'm like, oh, I think it's gonna stop in front of our house. So I said, I'm about to go put on some clothes. You get ready. We're gonna go outside and be nosy. So as I'm putting on clothes, I'm thinking, why are they here? What could be the emergency? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, the next door neighbors, they smoke and they're old. And Kyle, my next door neighbor, is known for violent outbursts. It could be any reason why they're on the street. And I'm going to assist them because I know all of this. So me and my mom go outside, we walk downstairs, and the fire truck, pulls out in front, and this firefighter gets out, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, he really wants our help. Like he's gonna ask us some questions. And so he goes, how are you guys doing today? And we're like, fine. And my mom like, what's going on? And he goes, somebody called about a fire in your backyard. I said, a fire in our backyard? And so I ran up the stairs, ran through the house, ran down the stairs, and I looked into the backyard, and I'm like, what fire? What is he talking about? I didn't pay attention to the 15-foot inferno that was blazing next to me. And so I walked back up the stairs, and I'm thinking to myself, does he mean that fire? Right? And so as I'm walking back into the house, they're whispering, like in really, really hushed tones. And I hear my mom say, well, she just got back from Africa. She said it just like that, Africa. And I hear the firefighter going, well, I survived the Oakland Hills fire of '91, and sometimes you can suffer from PTSD and things like that. And I'm thinking to myself, my experience in Kenya wasn't tragic like that. Like I'm not fucked up, because that's what the thinking was. And I'm getting angry because up at that point, I had tried so hard to kind of like readjust, and I thought I was doing so good. And to hear them talking about me like I had just been released from a mental hospital and they didn't want to, round me up, kind of angered me. And so my mom said, thank you, it won't happen again, and I'll talk to her. So my mom closed the door and she goes, what's going on, Shinita? I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And the firefighter hasn't left. He's standing there still for some reason. I don't know. Maybe he thinks something's going to happen. And I go, I'm actually doing okay. I've only been gone 2 years saving the world and curing malaria. I don't know what you two have been doing with yourselves. But no, I was disgusted as soon as I said it. I mean, this is a firefighter who's obviously a hero. And my mother, who after my parents got divorced, raised 3 daughters on her own. So I apologize. I knew I was wrong. And so my mom and the firefighter goes, well, take care, safety, fire code, state marshal 930 says you can't burn garbage or something like that. Okay, good to know. But it actually hadn't passed until January 2004. So I was actually only 3 years off. It used to be legal. So I wasn't that far off. So my mom closes the door and she says, is everything okay? And I'm like, I'm actually, doing pretty good. I didn't think anything was wrong. She was like, well, a neighbor told me some things. And I said, well, what did a neighbor tell you? And she says, well, the neighbor says they saw you walking down the street barefoot, carrying Cheerios and a 6-pack of Coke and some bread on top of your head. And so I'm like, well, what is so odd about that? I wasn't big on wearing shoes before I left. That's nothing new. So I said, look, I'm okay. You don't have to worry about me. I told you, I promised you I would come back, sane, and I'm on that pathway. So I went into the garage and I cried so hard, I gave myself a facial. I'm sure I exfoliated my skin with my tears. And I should let you know that before you leave service, Peace Corps gives you helpful tips and resources for your readjustment. And one of them is that they offer you 3 free therapy sessions, which I told them I would not need. And, perhaps you could pass that on to somebody else who may have a hard time readjusting. I was in control. I would be okay. So the very next day, I found a therapist and was pretty vexed that they only gave me 3 free sessions.